In my first video on how to design a blacksmith's forge, I brought out this model to illustrate the size difference between a typical fire that was held in a conventional fire pot that was available up until about the 1950s and your typical brake drum forge. Since then, I've been getting a lot of questions about the size of this model and how to put it together and that sort of thing. So in this video I've decided to just walk you through the whole process, and hopefully that'll answer any questions you may have. As you can see, the fire pot is funnel shaped, and the front and back panels are 8 inches across the top, and the side panels are 10 inches across the top. And the overall depth is approximately 5 inches. And all 4 sides slope down to a 4-inch square opening at the base. The first thing you need to do to figure out the pattern for this model is to draw a full-size pattern of the front and side views of the firebox. The vertical line that I've drawn on the cardboard is the center line that I'm going to use for both views. And at 90 degrees to that line, I'm going to draw the top edge of the fire pot. I'm only going to be drawing half of the fire pot because that's going to give me all the information that I'm going to need to figure out the lengths of the sides. The 2 marks that I've drawn are the top corners of the front and the side panels. Now I'm going to measure in the overall height for the fire pot. So this line is where the base of the fire pot sits. Since the base of the fire pot is a 4-inch square, I only need to draw a 2-inch mark here to define the base. Now that I have these points laid out, I can draw in the lines that represent the angled sides of the fire pot. Since I'm only after one measurement from each one of these layouts, I can easily overlap them without causing any confusion. So just to be clear, what I have drawn on the cardboard is the end view of the fire pot, and the sloping line that's resting up against my drafting square is the length of the side panel, not the end panel. And the same is true for the sloping line that represents the side view of the fire pot. So the line that I've just drawn is the actual length of the end panels, even though it's found on the drawing for the side panels. So again, when I build the actual patterns, the overall length that I'm going to be looking for the side patterns is going to be found on the end view, and the overall length for the pattern for the end panels is going to be found on the side view. So all I need to do to figure out the total depth of each one of these panels is to measure these 2 lines. So now I'm ready to start drawing out the actual patterns. I've drawn in the center line and the top edge of the pattern. Now I need to add in the overall depth of the pattern piece. And this is the end panel, so I'm going to be measuring the longer line from the side view to get the overall depth of that pattern piece. And the length of that line is 5 7/8. So that's where I'm going to be locating the base of this pattern piece. And the end panel is 8 inches across the top, so I'm going to be laying in a 4-inch mark to define the top corner of that panel. And here I'm extending that line to the full 8 inches for the top. And again, the base of the pattern piece is 4 inches across. Just connect the dots and you're done this pattern piece. And it's exactly the same process for the side panels. The overall length for that pattern piece is found on the end view drawing that I've made, and that happens to be 5.5 inches. Before you cut the patterns out, it's always good to do a quick check. If everything's right, these two edges should be exactly the same length because they need to fit together on the corner. And as it turns out, they're not the same length, so I've got to figure out where I screwed up. And the first thing I checked is where the problem was. I was a little short on this panel, so I need to extend the baseline down slightly. Now that I've redrawn the line, I'm going to double check everything and make sure that it all adds up. It's really important to take the time to make sure that the pattern pieces are as close as you can possibly make them. You have to remember from here you're probably going to be going to 1/4 or 1/2 inch plate. So if something is wrong there, you need to be able to hold up the pattern piece to the plate and figure out what's off. If your plate is off and your pattern piece is off, then you have no reference. You have no way of figuring out where the problem is and what you need to do to fix it. And here are all the pattern pieces assembled into the mock-up for the fire pot. Again, this is just for the shape of the fire pot that I'm using, which is a Buffalo Forge fire pot that was probably available until the late 1950s or so. The shape isn't all that critical. You can go a little bit larger on any of the dimensions and it's not going to affect anything. All I was trying to get across with the first video is that as long as you amass this volume of coals, a taller fire rather than a low flat fire, you're going to have a good fire for forge welding or general forge work. The only part that needs to be added to this is the grate at the bottom of the fire pot, and I use a straight bar grate, and I always orient the bars so that they're parallel to the sides. It just makes using the poker that much easier, and it's fairly easy to construct. If you weld it from the bottom, if it ever burns out or if you ever have any problems with it, it's very easy to remove. So those are about the only considerations that I would have. And of course, there's a top flange on the top edge of this fire pot, but you'll have to build that to suit whatever it is you're doing. As well, you may need to modify these dimensions slightly to accommodate the thickness of the plates that you're using and whatever you're planning to do for an edge preparation prior to welding. But regardless of the final dimensions you plan on using, the process of laying out the patterns remains the same. Hi, I'm Dennis, and thanks for watching. If you're interested in supporting this channel and you can spare $2.50 every month, click on the Patreon logo at the bottom of the screen. I'd really like to be able to expand the content of this channel and turn it into the best resource for anyone wanting to learn traditional crafts, but I need your help to get there. Thank you.